Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Blog Podcast. Today is Wednesday, January 9th, 2019. Going to be a long podcast today. I'm going to recap college basketball, NBA, and NHL, go over tonight's slate in each of those sports. A lot of NFL hires, a big name NBA superstar close to returning, MLB over-unders, my first NFL mock draft, and I'll give you guys my best bet of the day, which will feature a moneyline parlay, which I'll get to at the end of the podcast. College hoops last night, some very interesting results, as there are each and every night. Number 1, Duke defeats Wake Forest 87-65. Duke, that game was close in the first half. They pulled away in the second half. They're 13-1, and Wake Forest drops to 7-7. Number 3, Tennessee defeats Missouri 87-63. I thought this was a trap game for the Vols, but they survive and they win big. They're 13-1 and Missouri's 9-4. Number 6, Michigan State defeats Purdue 77-59. Sparty is now 14-2. Purdue is 9-6. Number 8, Texas Tech defeats number 23 Oklahoma 66-59. Tech is 14-1. Oklahoma is 12-3. Number 12, North Carolina defeats number 15 NC State 90-82. This is a slim upset because Carolina was an underdog in this game. 1.5 underdog. They probably should have been favored by 2. Carolina improves to 12-3. NC State drops to 13-2. South Carolina upsets number 14 Mississippi State 87-82 in overtime. A good win for South Carolina. They're 7-7. Mississippi State, bad loss, drops to 12-2. Number 18 Kentucky defeats Texas A&M 85-74. The Wildcats are 11-3. The Aggies are 6-7. Number 19, Buffalo destroys Toledo 110-80. A great performance for Buffalo. They're 14-1. Toledo drops to 12-3. Baylor upsets number 20, Iowa State 73-70. Baylor goes to 9-5. Iowa State drops to 12-3. Villanova defeats number 24, St. John's 76-71. Villanova is favored, so this is not an upset. Villanova is 12-4. St. John's is 14-2. Kent State defeats Western Michigan 88-73. Kent State 12-3. Western Michigan 6-9. Brown defeats Canisius 97-90. In overtime, Brown is 11-4. Canisius is 5-9. Eastern Michigan defeats Ball State 84-82 in double overtime. Eastern Michigan 7-8. Ball State is 10-5. Northern Illinois defeats Miami of Ohio 83-70. Northern Illinois is 9-6. Miami of Ohio is 8-7. Missouri State defeats Indiana State 72-57. Missouri State is 7-9. Indiana State is 9-6. Bowling Green defeats Ohio 82-63. Bowling Green is 10-5. Ohio is 10-6. Maryland upsets Minnesota 82-67. Maryland's 13-3. Minnesota is 12-3. Marist defeats Manhattan 78-63. Marist 6-8. Manhattan 3-12. Oklahoma State upsets Texas 61-58. Oklahoma State 7-8. Texas is 10-5. Central Michigan defeats Akron 88-86. In overtime, Central Michigan 13-2. Akron is 9-6. Evansville defeats Loyola Chicago 67-48. Evansville 8-8. Chicago 9-7. Valparaiso defeats Bradley 61-50. Valpo 10-6. Bradley 8-8. Drake defeats Southern Illinois 82-70. Drake 12-4. Southern Illinois is 9-7. Illinois State defeats Northern Iowa 70-69. Illinois State is 9-7. Northern Iowa is 6-10. LSU defeats Alabama 88-79. LSU 11-3. Alabama is 10-4. Colorado State defeats Air Force 87-64. Colorado State is 6-10. Air Force is 5-10. North Alabama defeats Florida Gulf Coast 61-56. Northern Alabama 4-13. Florida Gulf Coast 5-12. San Diego State defeats Wyoming 84-54. San Diego State 9-6. Wyoming 4-12. UNLV upsets New Mexico 80-69. This was bound to happen because New Mexico had the big upset over Nevada. You knew this was going to happen. UNLV 9-6. New Mexico's 8-7. Yale defeats Skidmore 88-59 as Yale goes to 10-3. And North Carolina AT defeats Mid-Atlantic Christian 104-56 as NCAT improves to 6-9. Tonight's slate, of course, a lot of conference games, and I'll pick any ones that are relevant. 6:30 on the SEC Network, Vanderbilt at Georgia. Tough call because Vanderbilt's obviously missing their star point guard out for the year, and Georgia is perceived to be the worst team in the SEC, or was. Texas A&M's probably it right now, but I'm going to say that Tom Crean gets the home win tonight. Don't feel great about it. I think Vandy is just going to struggle without their star point guard. 6:30 on Fox Sports 1, Georgetown's at Xavier. Xavier's a 6-point favorite. I think Xavier wins, and I think Georgetown covers the 6. I like what I've seen from Georgetown so far, but they should have beaten St. John's the other day. But this team isn't that bad and has a chance to get in at large. Number 16, Ohio State is at Rutgers, 7 o'clock on the Big Ten Network. This is indeed a trap game. I think that Ohio State wins and covers the 5.5. Speaking of trap games, here's one. Number 9, Virginia Tech at Georgia Tech. Virginia Tech's favored by 7.5. I think Virginia Tech wins, and I think they cover 2. Number 11, Auburn at Ole Miss. Guess what? Another trap game. This is the one I'm going to call for the upset. I think Ole Miss picks off Auburn. I don't feel great about it. Number 21, Marquette is at Creighton. 7 o'clock on the CBS Sports Network. Is this a trap game for Marquette? Not really, because they're not favored. Creighton's favored. I think Creighton gets the win. They need it more. West Virginia at Kansas State. 7 o'clock on ESPNU. That is a low line to me. Kansas State's favored by only 4 points. I wonder if Sagaba Kanate's back for West Virginia. If that's the case, I think they have a chance to get a huge road win to get on the board in conference play. But the safer play here is Kansas State. Although Kansas State just lost as a pretty big favorite to Texas. And they were favored by more than this against Texas. So I don't feel great about Kansas State, but I think they win. But they barely cover. Let's say they win by 6. On ESPN News at 7 o'clock, you have number 17 Houston at Temple. Trap game for the Cougars. This is where I think they get their first loss of the year. I really do like this Temple team. If they get the win here, then they put themselves in a good position to get in at large. 7 o'clock on ESPN3, you have Tulane at South Florida. South Florida's off to a great start this year. I think they get the win here. And you have Davidson at George Mason. Trap game for Davidson. They're only a 1-point favorite. I think they win and cover. Dayton at George Washington. I think this is a possible upset. I think George Washington definitely covers here, but I'm going to say Dayton gets the road win. Rhode Island at Richmond. Rhode Island's only favored by 2. I think they win and cover. St. Joe's at St. Bonaventure at 7 o'clock. Bonnie is a 1.5-point favorite. I think the Bonnies do get the win here on their home floor. I don't like what I've seen from St. Joe's so far in conference play. LaSalle at VCU. VCU is a big favorite. They're favored by 12.5. They win and cover. Cornell at Towson, Binghamton at Stony Brook, UMBC at Hartford, Vermont at Maine, UMass Lowell at New Hampshire, Jacksonville at Kennesaw State, Liberty at Stetson, Navy at American, Army at Boston University, Colgate at Bucknell, Loyola Maryland at Lafayette, Lehigh at Holy Cross, 7:30 North Florida and Lipscomb, A&M Corpus Christi at Northwestern State, Abilene Christian at McNeese. 2 big ACC games tonight. Clemson at Syracuse. Syracuse is a 3-point favorite. I think Syracuse wins and covers. They need this game more than Clemson does. And then 2 other 10-4 teams. Louisville at Pitt. Oh my goodness. This screams upset. This screams Pitt upset. You know what? Screw it. I think Pitt's going to beat Louisville outright. I do think Pitt's going to win. Don't feel great about it. Louisville's probably the safer bet, but I want to make some ballsy calls like I did with Ole Miss against Auburn. I think my ACC upset of the night is that I think Pitt beats Louisville outright. Fordham at Duquesne. 2 9-5 teams from the 8-10. I think Fordham covers the 7.5, but Duquesne wins. Stephen F. Austin and Nicholls, Sam Houston State at Central Arkansas. New Orleans at Lamar. 8:30 SEC Network. Florida at Arkansas. Florida's the team favored by 1.5. I think Arkansas wins outright on their home floor. 9 o'clock on the Big Ten Network. Iowa at Northwestern. Northwestern's a 3-point favorite. Iowa's a good team, but I think that Northwestern wins, but a close game. that feels like a push in the makings. Number 4, Virginia at Boston College on ESPNU at 9 o'clock. I think Virginia wins, but Boston College covers the big number. Miami at number 13, Florida State. I think Florida State wins and covers because I'm not sold on Miami on the road. Number 25, TCU at number 7, Kansas. Don't forget, no Azubuike for Kansas. He's out for the year. I still think Kansas is the better team. I think it'd be ballsy to take TCU in the points here, but I'm going to go the other way and say that Kansas barely covers. I think this is a 7-point win for the Jayhawks. On CBS Sports Network, you have UMass at St. Louis. St. Louis is 8.5-point favorite. I think St. Louis wins there. Pac-12 Network at 9 o'clock, you have Arizona State at Cal. Trap game for the Sun Devils for sure. I think Cal covers, but Arizona State wins. Fresno State at Utah State is interesting. These two teams are combined 22-7 in the Mountain West Conference. I think Fresno State can absolutely win this game. I think they cover the 6.5, but I'm going to say Utah State wins. 10 o'clock, Cal Poly at UC Santa Barbara. Cal State Northridge at UC Riverside. 11 o'clock, Pac-12 Network. Arizona at Stanford. This is a trap game for the Wildcats, but I think they win and cover the 4. I just don't think Stanford's very good. They're probably the worst team in the Pac-12 this year. San Jose State at number 10, Nevada. Nevada's going to bounce back and win. And you have Cal State Fullerton at Hawaii. I'm going to go over to the NBA real quick. Go over those games. There was 8 of them on the slate last night. The Pacers defeat the Cavs 123-115. They don't cover, but they do get the win and avoid a trap. Indiana's 27-13. Cleveland's 8-33. Thaddeus Young had 26. Domantas Sabonis had 15. Bogdan Bogdanovic had 23. Victor Oladipo had 17. Off the bench, Corey Joseph had 11. C.D. Osman and Tristan Thompson each had 15. Colin Sexton had 14. And Alec Burks had 19. Off the bench, Cam Payne had 10. And Jordan Clarkson had 26. The 76ers defeat the Wizards 132-115. Philly is 27-14. Washington is 16-25. Landry Shamet led the Sixers in scoring. He had 29 points, including 8 3-pointers off the bench. Joel Embiid had 20. Ben Simmons had 17. Jimmy Butler had 20. And J.J. Redick didn't play in the game, so starting in his place was Furkan Korkmaz, who had 16 points. Meanwhile, for Washington, Bradley Beal had 28. Jeff Green had 15. Off the bench, Otto Porter had 11. Sam Decker had 14. And Jan Mahimny and Chasen Randall each had 10. The Nuggets defeat the Heat 103-99 on a go-ahead field goal by Nikola Jokic. Denver's 27-12. Miami's 19-20. Jokic, 29 points, 11 rebounds, and 10 assists. Torrey Craig had 11. Paul Millsap had 12. Jamal Murray had 18. Off the bench, Trey Lyles had 15. Meanwhile, for Miami, Justice Winslow, Josh Richardson, and Hassan Whiteside each had 12. Off the bench, Kelly Olynyk and Bam Adebayo each had 13. Deion Waiters had 15, and Dwayne Wade had 10. The Raptors defeat the Hawks 104-101 as Toronto. Oof, who would have thought this was a trap game? They're 31-12, and Atlanta's 12-28. Kawhi Leonard had 31. Pascal Siakam and Serge Ibaka each had 13. Kyle Lowry had 16. Off the bench, OJ Anunoby had 14. All the Atlanta starters were in double digits, and their bench didn't do anything. Listen to this. John Collins had 21 with 14 boards. DeAndre Bembry had 11. Dwayne Dedmon had 12. Jeremy Lin had 20 with 9 assists. And Trae Young had 19. The Timberwolves upset the Thunder 119-117 in Ryan Saunders' first game as interim head coach. That was really nice to see. Minnesota goes to 20-21. OKC drops to 25-15. Andrew Wiggins had the game of his life. 40 points and 10 boards. Karl Anthony Towns had 20 with 9 boards. Off the bench, Dario Saric had 15. Anthony Tolliver had 10, and Tyus Jones had 10. Paul George had 27. Russell Westbrook had 25 points and 16 assists. Steven Adams had 20. And the bench didn't do anything. The Suns defeat the Kings 115-111 as the Suns go to 10-32. Sacramento drops to 20-21. And Sacramento gets caught in the trap. Kelly Oubre Jr. off the bench for Phoenix at 26. Rashawn Holmes off the bench at 12. Troy Daniels off the bench at 11. Out of the starters, TJ Warren had 21. D'Anthony Mellon had 10. DeAndre Ayton had 17 with 12 boards. And Josh Jackson had 13. Willie Cauley-Stein had 15. Darren Fox had 24. Buddy Hield had 16. Justin Jackson off the bench had 12. And Ben McLemore off the bench had 20. The Clippers defeat the Hornets 128-109. Clippers are 24-16. Charlotte is 19-21. Lou Williams had 27 points off the bench. And Montrezl Harrell had 23 points with 11 boards off the bench. Danilo Gallinari had 20. Tobias Harris had 23. And Avery Bradley had 10. Marvin Williams had 14 with 7 boards. Nick Batum had 10. Kemba Walker had 13. Jeremy Lamb had 16. Off the bench, Tony Parker had 12. And Malik Monk had 24. And the Warriors defeat the Knicks 122-95. Golden State improves to 27-14. The Knicks are 10-31. Klay Thompson had the best game of his season so far. 43 points, including 7 threes. Steph Curry had 14 points and 14 assists. Kevin Durant had 24.6 boards and 6 assists. Bench didn't do anything. The Knicks bench did a lot. Mario Hezonja had 19. Enes Kanter had 12 with 16 boards. Trey Burke had 10. Alonzo Trier had 11. Kevin Knox had 12. And Tim Hardaway had 13. And obviously Knox and Hardaway are starters on the Knicks. 10 games tonight. You have at 7 o'clock the Pacers at the Celtics, the 76ers at the Wizards, 7:30 the Hawks at the Nets, 8 o'clock ESPN, Bucks, Rockets. In my opinion, the 2 leading candidates for MVP, Giannis Antetokounmpo and James Harden. The Bucks are favored by 1.5. To me, the wrong team's favored. The best player on the court tonight will be the red-hot James Harden. The Rockets, to me, should be 3-point favorites here. I think Vegas just sees the Milwaukee as the best record in the NBA and giving them some respect, and they are overvaluating Chris Paul's absence just a little bit in this spot because of how awesome James Harden has been. So give me Harden and the Rockets here to win outright, and I think they can win this game by double digits. The Spurs at the Grizzlies, the Cavs at the Pelicans, 8:30 the Suns at the Mavs, 9 o'clock the Magic at the Jazz, 10 o'clock the Bulls at the Trailblazers, and 10:30 the Pistons at the Lakers on ESPN. Tough call. LeBron James is not back for the Lakers yet, but I think the Lakers are capable of beating a bad team at home like the Pistons. Yeah, they did just lose to the Knicks, which is why I think the Lakers are undervalued in this spot. And they're very undervalued against Dallas, too, in which they pulled off a pretty big road upset. They're a 7-point dog in the Dallas game. Kyle Kuzma's back. He helped them in the Mavs game. The Mavs are a better team than the Pistons, and I think that the Lakers will get the win here at home. I'm going to say it's close, though. I could see this game being like a 120-113 game. No defense, a lot of threes. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's playing against his former team, so I think he'll have a big game. So give me the Lakers to win on their home court as a short favorite. To hockey we go. Last night's slate was pretty big. The Bruins defeat the Wild 4-0 as Boston improves to 25-14-4. Minnesota drops to 21-18-3. Number 1 star of the game with 24 saves on 24 shots. Tuukka Rask, number 2 star of the game with a goal and assist. 2 assists. Patrice Bergeron, number 3 star of the game with a goal and 2 assists. Brad Marchand. The Sabres defeat the Devils 5-1 as Buffalo improves to 23-14-6. New Jersey 16-19-7. Number 1 star of the game with a goal, C.J. Smith. Number 2 star of the game with a goal, Lawrence Pluitt. And the number 3 star of the game with an assist, Tage Thompson. The Hurricanes defeat the Islanders 4-3 as Carolina improves to 20-17-5. Islanders drop to 23-14-4. Number 1 started the game with a goal, Justin Williams. Number 2 started the game with 28 saves on 31 shots, Curtis McKinney. And then number 3 started the game with 2 goals and an assist, Brock Nelson. The Penguins defeat the Panthers 5-1 as Pittsburgh improves to 24-13-6. Florida drops to 17-17-7. Number 1 started the game with 36 saves on 37 shots, Matt Murray. Number 2 started the game with 2 goals, Brian Rust. And number 3 started the game with a goal and assist, Sidney Crosby. The Capitals defeat the Flyers 5-3 as Washington improves to 26-12-4. Philly drops to 15-22-6. Number 1 started the game with 2 goals and an assist, Jacob Vrana. Number 2 started the game with 2 goals, TJ Oshie. Number 3 started the game with 2 assists, John Carlson. The Canadiens defeat the Red Wings 3-2 as Montreal improves to 23-16-5. Detroit drops to 16-22-7. Number 1 started the game with a goal, Brendan Gallagher. Number 2 started the game with 2 goals, Andreas Athanasiou. And the number 3 started the game with 2 assists, Thomas Tatar. Against his former team, by the way, too. Lightning defeat the Blue Jackets 4-0. Good win for Tampa. They go to 33-8-2 as Columbus falls to 25-15-3. Number 1 started the game with 2 goals and an assist, Braden Point. Number 2 started the game with 31 saves on 31 shots, newly named All-Star, Andrei Vasilevsky. Number 3 started the game with 2 assists, Mikhail Sergachev. The Stars defeat the Blues 3-1 as Dallas goes to 23-17-4. St. Louis drops to 17-20-4. Number 1 started the game with 2 goals and an assist, Tyler Seguin. Number 2 started the game with 26 saves on 27 shots, Ben Bishop. Number 3 started the game with a goal, David Perron. The Jets defeat the Avalanche 7-4. Colorado goes to 20-15-8. Winnipeg improves to 27-13-2. Number 1 started the game with a goal and 3 assists, Blake Wheeler. Number 2 started the game with a goal and 2 assists, Jacob Trouba. Number 3 started the game, a goal and 2 assists, Mark Sheffley. The Sharks defeat the Oilers 7-2 as San Jose goes to 25-13-7. Edmonton drops to 20-20-3. Number 1 started the game with 3 assists, Erik Karlsson. Number 2 started the game with 2 goals and an assist, Evander Kane. Number 3 started the game with 2 goals, Jonas Dukonski. And last but not least, the Golden Knights defeat the Rangers 4-2. Vegas goes to 27-15-4. New York drops to 17-18-7. Number 1 started the game with the goal, Brandon Peary. Number 2 started the game with the goal, Cody Eakin. Number 3 started the game with 27 saves on 29 shots, Marc-Andre Fleury. Only 3 games on the slate tonight. 8 o'clock NBCSN. The Predators at the Blackhawks. Doc Emrick, Eddie Olczyk, Pierre Maguire on the call. The Blackhawks have played a little better lately at home, especially in nationally televised games. They actually beat Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh on the road. They did lose in the Winter Classic at Notre Dame Stadium against the Bruins. Tough call, but I'm going to say the Predators get the win, although I don't feel good about it because this feels like a very trap game for the Predators, although they're getting healthy at the right time. So I like Nashville there on the road. Don't feel great about it. 9:30, the Avalanche at the Flames, and 10 o'clock, the Senators at the Ducks. Now I'm going to talk about a little NBA news that came down about a couple hours ago. DeMarcus Cousins is set to return, and he has a target date for January 18th, a Friday night game in Los Angeles against the Clippers, which will be an ESPN game. It was recently flexed in on the ESPN schedule, which used to be Pelicans Trailblazers, but they flexed out of that game because the Pelicans aren't very good. So they flexed in the Warriors at the Clippers, and the other factor is that they probably feel that the Clippers need more love because they have exceeded all expectations this year. So I think that was a good move by ESPN flexing in that game. And maybe they flexed it in knowing that could have been when DeMarcus Cousins would be back. So good move by ESPN in that sense too. So that should be fun to see how he looks, and he can really make the Warriors unequivocally favorites to three-peat because the Warriors really haven't looked right. They had a good performance against the Knicks last night, but the Knicks are one of the 5 worst teams in the league, so you can't take it with grain of salt. We need to see them play a good team to see how they would look. Even with Cousins there would be a big test. See how they'd look. I'm going to go over some NFL hires before I go over the baseball over-unders. The Arizona Cardinals hired Cliff Kingsbury as their new head coach. This is an inspiring hire, in my opinion. He's an offensive guru. Maybe he will rejuvenate Josh Rosen after a terrible rookie season, in which he was clearly the worst rookie quarterback in the league. And I'm interested to see who he hires on his staff. I wonder if Cliff will be the offensive coordinator for them as well. Or I should say offensive play caller rather than coordinator. So if I had to grade that hire, I'd give it a solid B+. Because I really like the idea of hiring Cliff, and he could really run an offense. And the other key to him is hire the right guys on defense. Because his Texas Tech teams didn't play any defense. And obviously he was known for developing Patrick Mahomes in school. He had Baker Mayfield for a year. And he worked with Johnny Manziel at one point of his life too. But Johnny Manziel turned out to be the biggest bust this decade. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have hired Bruce Arians to be their new head coach. I think this is a pretty good hire. Yes, Arians is old, and I'm surprised that he came out of retirement for this job. Tampa must have gave him a big contract, although they had to pay compensation to the Cardinals to hire Arians. But this, in all likelihood, means that they're going to keep Jameis Winston around. I'd give this hire a B. And Arians is bringing back on his staff Todd Bowles, who was his defensive coordinator in Arizona. And Bowles did a good job as the Cards defensive coordinator, but he was not good as the New York Jets head coach. Then the Green Bay Packers hired Matt LaFleur as their new head coach, who was the offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans. This is, I think, the worst hire of all the recent hires because the Titans' offense wasn't anything special. It was so bad against a bad Giants team. I mean, yeah, Marcus Mariota wasn't healthy this year, so that's the case for LaFleur to be successful. But I don't get that one. I'm giving that a D. The Browns have hired Freddie Kitchens to be their new head coach, who was their intern offensive coordinator and really did a good job with Baker Mayfield in that offense. I give that grading a B+. And the Broncos have hired Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears, as their new head coach. This one surprised me because Vic is pretty old in terms of age. This is a questionable hire, and who knows of how long he's going to want to coach for, so I'm going to give this a C. Now I'm going to go over the MLB win total over-unders that were released by Caesars yesterday. And some of them are conceiving and others are not. I'm going to go from highest to lowest. The Houston Astros have the highest over-under, 97.5. They are probably banking on them to fix their rotation and replacing Dallas Keuchel and Charlie Morton by either trading for somebody like a Zach Greinke or signing somebody in free agency. Maybe they liked what they saw from Josh James last year, who showed some promise. And the other key for Houston that was a loss was Lance McCullers Jr., who had Tommy John surgery. And plus, they're probably banking on bounce-back year from Carlos Correa, a repeat of a season from Alex Bregman. And the other reason why they have the highest win total, in my opinion, is because that the AL West is a weaker division than the American League East. And the AL Central's obviously weak, but the Astros are a better team than everybody in the American League Central. The Yankees are next at 96.5. The fact that they have a higher over-under than the Boston Red Sox tells you that Vegas thinks that the Yankees are going to sign Manny Machado. But if not that, then the case for the Yankees to have a better record in Boston without Machado is that they're banking on a bounce-back year from Gary Sanchez, Aaron Judge to stay healthy the whole year. Giancarlo Stanton had a decent first year in pinstripes, but they probably expect him to be even better next year. A full season of J. Happ in that rotation and James Paxton, which is upgrades over Sonny Gray, who will be traded at some point, probably during spring training. And that combination of Domingo Germán and Jonathan Loáisiga. And Loáisiga has emerged as a top 100 prospect in the game. But you rather have J. Happ and James Paxton than the combo of Domingo Germán and Jonathan Loáisiga and Sonny Gray. The Red Sox are next at 95.5, reigning world champions. I just laid out the case for why the Yankees are ahead of Boston on this list, other than the argument that they're going to sign Manny Machado. But Boston obviously re-signs Nathan Eovaldi. They have guys in contract years, such as essentially JD Martinez. He can opt out after the year. Xander Bogaerts is in a contract year. They brought back Steve Pearce. David Price had a good bounce-back year. Rick Porcello had a good bounce-back year last year. So maybe those could be replicated. But that's their argument for winning the AL East over the Yankees, if all those guys live up to expectations and if Chris Sale stays healthy. The Dodgers are at 95. That sounds about right for them. Unless they sign Bryce Harper, then that should go higher. I do think they ultimately sign Bryce Harper because why would they trade Yasiel Puig and Matt Kemp to open up an outfield spot for? It was a very NBA trade of the Dodgers to do in the sense to open up room for a superstar. So that's what makes me think they're going to sign Harper. The Cleveland Indians are at 91.5. That sounds about right for them. They did not trade Corey Kluber or Trevor Bauer yet, which is a good thing for them. And if they want to be a contender, Francisco Lindor is one of the best players in the game. Jose Ramirez is still on that team. I think that the addition of Jake Bauers will prove to be one of the better ones that has flown under the radar. So their payroll clearing, I don't think, has hurt their chances of competing for the World Series by any stretch. The Chicago Cubs at 89 is low to me. I guess they're just down on them because of how their season ended with losing at home to the Brewers in the NL Central Division title game, then losing at home in the wild card game the next day to the Colorado Rockies. Maybe they're not sold on Yu Darvish bouncing back, but that seems very low to me. There's obviously been turmoil with Joe Madden's future, so that to me is a little low. Next up is the St. Louis Cardinals at 88.5. That sounds about right for them. They improved their team by trading for Paul Goldschmidt. Their rotation's pretty good. They upgraded their bullpen by signing Andrew Miller. The Nationals are 88.5. To me, it sounds like they know something. Maybe they think Bryce Harper's going back there. If Bryce Harper wasn't going back there, that number would be awfully a lot lower. So my two biggest takeaways from this list so far is, does Vegas know that Harper's going back to DC, or else this number wouldn't be this high, which would make them their division favorites? And the Yankees being ahead of the reigning world champions from their own division tells me that they know that they're signing Manny Machado. But I did lay out the case for them over the Red Sox regardless of what happens with Machado. Tampa Bay's at 85.5. To me, that's low. I think they made their team better this offseason. I do think they're going to regret trading Jake Bauers, who had a good year for them last year. But Blake Snell, the addition of Charlie Morton's going to help. Maybe their dark horse candidate to trade for JT Realmuto. That would make their offense better. The Atlanta Braves are at 84. To me, that's very low. They just won the division title and made their team better by bringing in veterans Brian McCann and Josh Donaldson. I guess Vegas hasn't sold on their rotation. I think they're a candidate to sign Dallas Keuchel. The Minnesota Twins are at 84. That is ludicrous high to me. I don't know what Vegas is smoking unless they know that they're signing somebody that we don't. Maybe they're signing Dallas Keuchel and we don't know. Or maybe they're expecting significant leaps from Byron Buxton and Miguel Sano, who have not shown the consistency to be franchise players. The Milwaukee Brewers at 83.5. That is very low to me. This team won its division last year and made the NLCS and made it to Game 7 of the NLCS and has the reigning NL MVP on their team. That is very disrespectful for the Brewers, regardless of their rotation. They should improve their rotation, but that is awfully low, and to me, that is ridiculous that they're that low. The Los Angeles Angels are at 83.5. To me, that's too high. That's all about Mike Trout. The Mets are at 83.5. To me, that sounds just about right for them. I do think they'll be better with the addition of Robinson Cano and the closer Edwin Diaz. The Oakland Athletics are at 83. To me, that sounds about right for them. Everything went right for them last year. Made the AL wild card with a subpar rotation, and they started an opener in the wild card game, which didn't bode well for them at all. Philadelphia's at 83. Sounds about right, especially if they don't get Manny Machado or Bryce Harper. 82 is the Colorado Rockies. To me, that is awfully low for a team that made the playoffs in back-to-back years, attempting for 3 straight. They have Nolan Arenado in a contract year. The Pittsburgh Pirates are at 78.5. To me, that is a little high. Maybe a full season of Chris Archer will help them. San Diego's at 77.5. They're expecting a big leap from the Padres this year, it looks like. The Arizona Diamondbacks are at 77. To me, that is low because I still think they have trades to make them look like they're taking a step back. The Cincinnati Reds are at 77. To me, that's a tad bit too high, even with the trades for Matt Kemp and Yasiel Puig. To me, they are one arm away from being enticing over. The Toronto Blue Jays are at 76.5. To me, that sounds about right, assuming that they don't trade Marcus Stroman. The Mariners are at 74.5. I think that is a little bit too low. I think they're just overreacting to them trading Robinson Cano and Edwin Diaz, among other players. Kyle Seager's still on this team. Mitch Haniger's still on this team. And I think that is just a little bit too low. I think the right number for them would be 77. Unless they trade away Seager and Haniger. The Chicago White Sox are at 74.5, so Vegas doesn't seem to think that Manny Machado is going to Chicago, because if Manny Machado was signing with the White Sox, or if they knew that he was signing with the White Sox, that number would be at around 78. The San Francisco Giants are at 73. Sounds about right. Madison Bumgarner's on the trade block, and they're in rebuilding. The Texas Rangers are at 70.5. To me, that's a little low, because they have some good players, position player-wise, but they have no starting pitching. The Royals at 69. To me, honestly, that's high. The Royals have, no players. Mike Moustakas is gone. Eric Hosmer left a year ago. Yeah, Vegas obviously knows that they're a bad team, but they're worse than that. Detroit 67. I think Detroit and Kansas City's numbers should be swapped. Detroit has signed some players that will be trying to play well to get traded to contenders mid-season. Michael Fulmer is looking to have a bounce back year, so he can up his trade value. So I think Vegas got those two numbers wrong. The Miami Marlins are at 65.5. I think that number's off. The Marlins have some young pieces, and JT Realmuto is still on their roster. And the Baltimore Orioles are at 59. Yes, they had such a bad year last year. 59 wins is awfully low. They should be, like, by 63 should be the Orioles' number to me. Not 59. 59 is awfully low. Yeah, they have a new manager. But I just think 59 is egregiously low for the Orioles. And we'll play the over-under game maybe tomorrow or Friday if I have time to do so on the podcast. Now I'm going to do my NFL mock draft, the first one of 2019. I did it on my Google blog called the Ultimate Sports Blog, which is where I get my Ultimate Sports Blog podcast name from. So we're going to start from number 1 and work our way down to 32 as I normally would on an NFL mock draft. I do not forecast trades in these whatsoever, although I do think there's going to be teams trading up and down in the draft this year like there are every year. Number 1, the Arizona Cardinals. Nick Bosa, defensive end, Ohio State. Bosa is the best player in this draft and certainly has a chance to be a multi-time All-Pro player. The Cardinals have needs everywhere on the roster other than a quarterback, and getting a possible franchise player to lead your pass rush to go with Chandler Jones is very enticing. Number 2, the San Francisco 49ers. Josh Allen, edge rusher, Kentucky. Allen was the key cog to a Wildcats defense which rode them to a phenomenal season. His draft stock has risen dramatically throughout the year, and the 49ers are a logical fit because they need an edge rusher. Number 3 is the New York Jets. Jonah Williams, offensive tackle, Alabama. Williams was the best lineman perhaps in the country this season and did a great job protecting Tua Tagovailoa. A young quarterback that needs a good offensive line is Sam Darnold, which makes the Jets a logical fit here. Number 4, the Oakland Raiders. Quinnen Williams, defensive tackle, Alabama. Williams was an intimidating presence in the middle of the Tide's defensive line in the past few years. The Raiders have needs everywhere on the defensive side of the ball, and Williams is a player that John Gruden would love. Number 5, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Rashawn Gary, defensive end, Michigan. The Bucs have a lot of holes to fill in the roster, but they need more help on the defensive end. Gary would slide right along with Jason Pierre-Paul and Gerald McCoy on that defensive front for new coach Bruce Arians. Number 6, the New York Giants. Dwayne Haskins, quarterback, Ohio State. Eli Manning's days of being a good starting quarterback in the league are over. Haskins handling the ball off to Saquon Barkley and throwing it to Odell Beckham Jr. would only jumpstart his career and would be a joy to watch. Number 7, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Brian Burns, edge rusher, Florida State. The Jaguars do need a quarterback, but let's assume they sign Joe Flacco or a veteran like many are suggesting. Burns is someone that could slide in as Yannick Ngakoue enters a contract year, and he could walk after the 2019 season. Number 8, the Detroit Lions. Greedy Williams, cornerback, LSU. The Lions have a lot of needs after yet another disappointing season. Williams would slide in to go with Darius Slay and Quandre Diggs to form a nice secondary for Matt Patricia. 9, Buffalo Bills. Greg Little, offensive tackle, Ole Miss. The Bills have a lot of holes to fill, and arguably their biggest need is offensive line help, although they could use a wideout here. Little can certainly help protect Josh Allen. 10, Denver Broncos. Byron Murphy, cornerback, Washington. Yes, the Broncos need a quarterback for the future, but they also have a need in the secondary as 2 of their starters will be free agents. Murphy was the best defensive back on the Huskies this past season, and he would have an impact in the league. Number 11, Cincinnati Bengals. Devin White, linebacker, LSU. White was the best linebacker in the country this past season and would be a fine selection by a Bengals team that is a need here. He is great off the ball and would make life easier for their secondary. Number 12, the Green Bay Packers. Deontay Thompson, safety, Alabama. If the Packers want to get back in contention, they must fix their secondary, especially after trading away Clinton Dix. Thompson is the best safety in the draft, and he'd be a great pick here by the Pack. 13, the Miami Dolphins. Drew Lock, quarterback, Missouri. The Dolphins have to know that Ryan Tannehill is just not a franchise quarterback, and it's time to move on. Lock had a strong showing in the second half of the college season and has a very good arm. 14, the Atlanta Falcons. Ed Oliver, defensive tackle, Houston. Oliver was once projected a top 5 pick, and his stock has dropped dramatically. The Falcons could wind up with a major steal here, potentially, if Oliver lives up to his potential. 15, Washington Redskins. DK Metcalf, wide receiver, Ole Miss. The Redskins are another team you can argue needs a quarterback regardless of what happens with Alex Smith and how he recovers from his surgery. They also need a wideout, and Metcalf is perhaps the best one in this draft class. 16, the Carolina Panthers. Chris Lindstrom, guard, Boston College. The Panthers never replaced the fragile loss of Andrew Norwell last offseason. Lindstrom would be a good addition to this line to keep Cam Newton upright and to find holes for Christian McCaffrey in the run game. 17, the Cleveland Browns. DeAndre Baker, cornerback, Georgia. For once, the Browns really don't have many needs. The secondary could use another body, and Baker would go very well with Denzel Ward and would be something fun to watch. 18, the Minnesota Vikings. Cody Ford, offensive tackle, Oklahoma. The Vikings were arguably the league's most disappointing team this past season, and their biggest issue was protecting Kirk Cousins. Ford would at least help the Vikings' offensive line and find holes for Dalvin Cook in the run game. 19, Tennessee Titans. Draymond Jones, defensive tackle, Ohio State. The Titans have a solid pass rush, but some help on the interior would be nice. Jones is one of the better interior linemen in the draft and was overshadowed on the Buckeyes by Nick Bosa while Bosa was playing. 20, Pittsburgh Steelers. Amani Arari, quarterback, Penn State. Depending on what happens with Antonio Brown, the Steelers may need a wideout. Meanwhile, right now, their bigger need lies in the secondary, where Joe Hayden is aging and Arari would bring physicality and new blood. 21, the Seattle Seahawks. Christian Wilkins, defensive tackle, Clemson. Snagging a talented interior lineman like Wilkins here would be a monster steal for the Seahawks. He'll bring physicality and would start for Pete Carroll immediately. 22, Baltimore Ravens. Riley Ridley, wide receiver, Georgia. Lamar Jackson was a big part of the Ravens' division title win, but he clearly needs more help around him. An argument could be made a lineman would be a better pick here, but he needs above-average talent to throw to, and Ridley could help. 23, Houston Texans. Yadni Kajuste, offensive tackle, West Virginia. Cornerback is another Texans' big need, but Deshaun Watson badly needs protection, and Kajuste would help the problem. The Texans have the worst offensive line perhaps in the sport, and that should be the team's top priority this offseason. 24, the Oakland Raiders from the Chicago Bears. Montez Sweat, defensive end, Mississippi State. The Raiders need a pass rush as they still need to replace Khalil Mack. Sweat should help fix it as John Gruden and Mike Maycock address the team's biggest need. 25, the Philadelphia Eagles. Jachai Polite, defensive end, outside linebacker, Florida. The Eagles have two of their pass rushers entering the free agent market, so Polite would be the logical fit here. This could be a potential steal, too, if he lives up to hype. 26, Oakland Raiders from the Dallas Cowboys. N'Keal Harry, wide receiver, Arizona State. Harry is someone who could wind up being a steal from the spot. This would be a nice weapon for Derek Carr since a few of his receivers are getting up there in age. 27, the Indianapolis Colts. A.J. Brown, wide receiver, Ole Miss. The Colts suddenly look like a team that has a look of a contender. A defensive player is the wiser choice, but Andrew Luck needs another reliable wideout other than T.Y. Hilton, and Brown could be that. 28, the Los Angeles Chargers. Jeffrey Simmons, defensive tackle, Mississippi State. Upgrading either line with this pick would be a wise move by the Chargers. A talent like Simmons on the same defensive line as Joey Bosa would be frightening. Number 29, the New England Patriots. Jawan Taylor, offensive tackle, Florida. Tom Brady is obviously not young anymore, and that's your argument for a quarterback here. Instead, they improved the offensive line by drafting Taylor, who has shown physicality and power. 30, Los Angeles Rams. Clelin Ferrell, defensive end, Clemson. The Rams' biggest need this offseason is a pass rusher and someone that could go conceivably in the top 10. Dropping to them will make Ferrell steal, perhaps, of the draft. Aaron Donald manning the interior and Ferrell on the outside is a scary proposition. 31, Kansas City Chiefs. Mack Wilson, linebacker, Alabama. The Chiefs have needs at every position on the defensive end, and now one at running back emerges with the Kareem Hunt disaster off their hands. Their defense will hold them back from not winning a Super Bowl, so Wilson is the pick here to solidify the linebacker position. 32, the Green Bay Packers from the New Orleans Saints, Marquise Brown, wide receiver, Oklahoma. The Packers need a downfield receiver to go with Devontae Adams, and Brown would be a wise choice. He'll help Aaron Rodgers, although his size may hurt his draft stock. And that is my first NFL mock draft of 2019. I'll probably do another one next week after the division round of the playoffs. And now my best bet of the week, brought to you by FanDuel. Let's go with Manchester City in soccer. NBA, the Brooklyn Nets, the New Orleans Pelicans, the Dallas Mavericks, the Utah Jazz, the Portland Trail Blazers. And in college basketball, Stony Brook, VCU, Liberty, Vermont, Lipscomb, Florida State, Virginia, and UC Santa Barbara, plus 436, wagering $1.09 to win $4.76 with a payout of $5.85. And that's it for the podcast today. I'll be back tomorrow recapping everything in college basketball, NBA, NHL, looking ahead to tomorrow's slate and any NFL hires, if they end up happening, will obviously be mentioned as well. I hope you guys have a great day, everybody.